Why war moves money. War changes priorities faster than almost anything else. In normal times, economies revolve around growth, new products, new technology, travel, entertainment, consumer spending. But when conflict begins, governments and industries suddenly focus on a different set of priorities. Energy, food, security, infrastructure. These are the foundations that keep a society functioning during instability. And when those priorities shift, money follows them almost immediately. Here's how the chain reaction usually starts. A geopolitical event occurs, an invasion, military escalation, or major regional conflict. Within hours, markets react. Shipping companies begin rerouting cargo. Insurance premiums rise for vessels entering risky regions. Ports may close, governments impose sanctions. And because modern supply chains are extremely interconnected, a disruption in one place can ripple through dozens of industries. Think of the global economy like a giant network of pipes. When one section of the system gets blocked, pressure builds somewhere else. One of the first places that pressure shows up is energy. Energy, the first domino. Oil and natural gas are the bloodline of the modern economy. They power transportation, factories, heating systems, electricity generation, and military logistics. Without energy, nothing moves. So when a conflict threatens pipelines, shipping lanes, or production facilities, energy markets respond quickly. We've seen this pattern many times. During the 1990 Gulf War, oil prices nearly doubled within months. During the 2003 Iraq War, crude oil prices surged again as markets feared disruptions to Middle Eastern supply. And in 2022, when Russia invaded Ukraine, natural gas prices in Europe skyrocketed as the continent suddenly lost access to a major supplier. Factories slowed production, household energy bills surged, and countries scrambled to secure alternative energy sources. Energy exporters around the world suddenly found themselves facing a surge in demand. This is one of the most consistent patterns during geopolitical conflict. Energy becomes strategic. The second domino, food. Once energy markets tighten, the next pressure point is often food supply. Agriculture may seem distant from geopolitics, but global food production depends on a fragile system of transportation, fertilizer supply, and stable farmland. When conflict can disrupt any of these, farmland may become unsafe, transportation routes may close, fertilizer exports may be restricted, and when one major food exporter is disrupted, global prices can react quickly. Ukraine, for example, is one of the largest wheat exporters in the world. When its ports were blocked during the conflict with Russia, wheat prices surged across global markets. Countries that relied on Ukrainian grain suddenly had to look elsewhere. Nations in North Africa and the Middle East began competing for supplies from the United States, Brazil, and Australia. Food markets, like energy markets, respond quickly when supply becomes uncertain. Defense spending. Another major shift during geopolitical conflict is government spending. Defense budgets often increase rapidly. Countries begin investing more in military equipment, aircraft and naval systems, surveillance technology, cybersecurity infrastructure, and satellite communications. These investments are not only about active conflict, they are also about deterrence and preparedness. When tensions rise globally, governments want to strengthen their defense capabilities. This can lead to significant contracts for companies involved in aerospace, engineering, cybersecurity, and advanced manufacturing. For investors and economists, defense spending is one of the clearest examples of how government priorities shift during uncertain times. Cyber warfare, the new front line. Modern conflict is no longer limited to physical battlefields. In recent years, cyber warfare has become a major part of geopolitical competition. Power grids have been targeted. Financial institutions have faced coordinated cyber attacks. Satellite systems and communication networks have been disrupted. These attacks can occur thousands of miles from any traditional battlefield, and they can affect entire economies. Because of this, governments are investing heavily in cybersecurity. Protecting digital infrastructure, banks, airports, hospitals, and communication networks has become a national security priority. This has created a rapidly growing sector focused on defending digital systems from increasingly sophisticated attacks. Metals, materials, and industrial supply. Another area affected during global conflict is industrial materials. Large-scale infrastructure, defense equipment, and energy systems require massive amounts of raw materials. Copper is used in electrical systems and communication infrastructure. Steel and aluminum are essential for vehicles, aircraft, and construction. Rare earth elements are critical for advanced electronics, sensors, and precision equipment. These materials form the backbone of modern industry. When global tensions rise and governments begin increasing production or strengthening infrastructure, demand for these materials can increase significantly. At the same time, geopolitical tensions can disrupt mining operations or export routes. When supply tightens and demand rises, commodity markets often respond quickly. What this means for markets. All of these shifts illustrate a broader pattern. During periods of instability, economies tend to move away from discretionary spending and toward essential systems. Energy, food, infrastructure, security. These sectors become central to maintaining stability. Financial markets reflect these shifts because markets ultimately respond to real-world demand. Investors, policymakers, and economists study these patterns not to celebrate conflict, but to understand how global systems behave under pressure. History shows that major geopolitical events can reshape markets for years. Industries expand, supply chains reorganize, governments rethink long-term security strategies, and global trade flows adapt to new realities. Understanding these patterns helps explain why markets sometimes react so dramatically when geopolitical tensions rise. War and conflict bring enormous human cost, and the humanitarian impact should never be ignored. But from an economic perspective, they also trigger powerful shifts in how resources move across the global system. Energy markets change, food supply chains adapt, defense spending increases, cybersecurity becomes critical, industrial materials move to the center of global demand. When you step back and look at history, the pattern becomes clear. Major global conflicts don't just shape politics, they reshape economies. And understanding those economic shifts helps explain how the world works during periods of instability.